By the time I finished with the first season of the Venture Brothers, I think I had developed a somewhat decent understanding of exactly why this show managed to foster a fairly healthy fanbase even in its inception. While not every single joke managed to land with me and the animation budget seemed to be, non-existent, there was a sheer amount of imagination behind everything that was just really engrossing when you started going through the different episodes. I'm well aware that the bar for interesting adult animated comedy settings is fairly low, given that the vast majority of them are just modern day America, but occasionally people catch on fire, but, well, the Venture Brothers still ranks fairly highly in my estimation. Right up there with the likes of Futurama and Archer, so much so that I was really interested in seeing more of the world, more new characters, and indeed following the Venture family on more of their various misadventures. But would Season 2 of the show prove to be the big leap in quality I was hoping it would be? I guess the only way to find out is to start talking about it in detail. Feel free to leave a like down below if you happen to be a fan of any of the content mentioned in this video, and if you happen to be a fan of the Venture Brothers, maybe leave a comment while you're down there. I mentioned in the last video that I was really hoping to hear more from fans of the show so I could further ingratiate myself into the fandom and also learn a little bit more about the series as I go deeper into it. Favorite characters, favorite episodes, favorite gags, you know, things of that nature. So, with that all said, let's get into Season 2.
Go Team Venture!
I don't know, they just do that.
Right out of the gate, Season 2 managed to address one of my main gripes when it came to the first season of the show, that being the rather lackluster animation that the first season had. I mentioned in the last video that the animation of the first season wasn't, you know, eyeball-bleedingly bad or anything of that nature, but it had to be said there were certainly moments where it was more like you were watching post-it notes than actual animation. Now, in terms of quality, the second season of the show isn't some visual tour de force or whatever other pretentious term critics like to use to say thing look pretty, but it was the kind of bump in quality you usually get whenever a series goes from Season 1 to Season 2. Character models became a little bit sharper and better defined, and animation overall was markedly more fluid. Anyone who's even remotely familiar with Adult Swim's original content, particularly from the 90s and early 2000s, could likely tell you that those shows were never really known for their high-quality, slick animation. So, hey, by those standards, the people behind the show were likely being given a fairly decent budget to work with, though I imagine it's going to be around Season 3 or Season 4 where things really pick up on the visual side of things. But I think the biggest jump in quality between Season 1 and Season 2 has to stem from the character writing. This time around, most of the Venture family are expanded upon in some way and are generally more interesting. Except for Helper, who is somehow less interesting this season.
No one knows what it's like.
Rusty is every bit as slimy and pathetic in this season as he was in Season 1, but there's one particular episode where it goes out of its way, again, to show how much of a broken wreck of a man he is when it comes to his daddy issues.
You son of a bitch! Do you know what you just put me through? What the were you thinking? What kind of up planet are you from, where you think showing up as my dead father is supposed to make me feel any better?
Enough that you can sympathize with the guy and feel a little bit bad for him, but he is still funny in how much of a jackass he is.
Underbite's all bluster and you know it.
Doc, the guy still blames you.
That crap with his jaw, never proven. And come on, it's been like 20 years. He can't still be mad about that.
Look around, jackass!
But the biggest shock for me personally is that Hank and Dean no longer feel like pointless background characters in the show that's, you know, named after them. At the very end of Season 1, Hank and Dean die. In most shows, this would be kind of a big deal, but as it turns out, Rusty has been cloning his sons for quite a long time. Wow, Rusty is such a literally me character. The constant death and cloning does go some way to explaining why both Hank and Dean seem to be so utterly stunted mentally. It's a neat twist, though I do hope the show doesn't become too reliant on doing it. It can kind of deflate a lot of interest in a character if they're just going to keep getting cloned time and again. But the two being clones does raise some interesting implications and questions, particularly when it comes to the lingering question of who their mom is, or even if they have a mom, considering, you know, clones. The show has certainly teased around the idea of who their mom might be, but I get the distinct impression it's one of those things that's never gonna have a concrete answer given. Oh well, if I'm being totally honest, I don't really mind much either way. Of the two brothers, Dean is clearly the smart one, but Hank, I get the distinct impression, given that he's so obsessed with Brock, may grow to become more of an action-focused character as the show goes on.
Henry Allen Venture, are you hearing this? What do you have to say for yourself?
I am the bat. Yes, you're the bat.
And I'm also kind of endeared by how much of a colossal, unending dumbass Hank happens to be. I'll admit I don't normally like characters where most of the jokes are, he's dumb, laugh. But in Hank's case, yeah, I don't know, it just kinda works for me. Maybe I just feel bad for the kid and his terrible, terrible life. To my surprise, Brock Sampson also ended up getting a little bit of depth added to him as the series went on. I liked him a fair bit in the first season, of course, but I thought he was just going to remain a hyper-competent, somewhat one-note mega badass character. But it was pretty cool getting an origin story for the guy and getting to meet Brock's mentor. Side note, but Brock's mentor being Hunter S. Thompson is just such a really funny joke. If you've ever read a Hunter S. Thompson book, well, the idea of him training assassins really doesn't seem that out of character for the guy. And the episode where Brock has a bit of a crisis of faith because he killed a Monarch henchman who really didn't deserve it, it was an unexpected episode, but pretty nice.
No, man, no, they're not gonna give it up for a shoe you made out of a dog. They forget it, V, it's my treat.
As for the other returning characters, I really like the Impossibles. I think they're just funny on a conceptual level, and I hope to see more of them. The Monarch was as hilarious here as he was in the last season, and his relationship with Dr. Girlfriend, who eventually became his wife, it was oddly sweet and endearing. Oh yeah, I didn't mention Dr. Girlfriend in the last video, did I? She's like a supervillain's sidekick who is hyper-competent, she dresses like Jackie Kennedy, and sounds like a 90-year-old chain smoker from New Jersey. Speaking of characters I didn't get to mention in the last video, there's also Jonas Venture Jr., Rusty's brother. Yeah, okay, so in the season 1 finale, it turns out that Rusty had a brother in the womb that he ate, but not in the way fetuses in the real world, you know, absorb each other Majin Buu style. He just straight up cannibalized Jonas Jr., but this didn't kill him. He spent his whole life inside Rusty's body like a tumor and eventually broke free and tried to kill Rusty, but then he gave up on that and they seem to be cool now. The guy doesn't have too many appearances across season 2, but it's just kind of funny that he's better than Rusty at just about everything while being knee-high. Another character from the last season that only had a tiny bit of screen time, Phantom Limb, gets fleshed out quite a lot here. And it is really impressive that they managed to take a guy with such a silly appearance and gimmick to make someone who is genuinely charismatic and intimidating as a villain. Dr. Orpheus, another character that I really liked, managed to get a good deal more screen time, this time with a story arc of him building up his own team of supernatural crime fighters. One of them is this monk alchemist guy. I don't know if he's a reference to anything, he's just kinda there, and then there's this other guy who's like a combination of Blade and Black Dynamite. Yeah, he's pretty cool, but in general I'm just happy to see more Dr. O, cause goddamn that guy is hilarious.
That was delivered by Dr. Orpheus! Yep! Oh, wow! If any of you colourful rogues would like to take revenge out on me on a full-time basis, my schedule is open!
But if I'm being totally honest, and of course I'm being totally honest, you can trust me, come on, give me your credit card number right now. I think the new characters that were introduced with this season are some of the best I've seen in recent memory, like the Grand Galactic Inquisitor. I'll admit, I'll be pretty bummed that really is him dead and gone after his first appearance, but on the other hand, I suppose his gimmick would get old after about the third appearance if he does turn up more.
Good morning!
And no joke, Dr. Henry Killinger is probably one of the funniest character concepts I've seen in my entire goddamn life. It says a whole lot that the literal comic book supervillain who goes around in a skull mask carrying a magical murder bag is somehow less evil than the real life Henry Kissinger, but let's not dwell on that. Life is painful enough as it is.
Hey, Web!
Black Gods! Discovered my magic murder bag with silly string.
You can silence me, but there will be others. Semper Fidelis Tyrannosaurus!
It's Semper Tyrannis. You said, always faithful, terrible lizard.
Also, a brief shout out to David Bowie apparently being the head of the Guild of Calamitous Intent. I get the impression he's not going to appear in the show too often, but honestly that would kinda make the joke even funnier. And that one parody of the Scooby-Doo gang where they're all based off infamous murderers from history, you know, Fred being based off of Ted Bundy and Shaggy being based off the Son of Sam. I really hope those guys get to appear more than once. It says a lot that this one side plot from a Venture Brothers episode is 1,000 times funnier than the actual adult Scooby-Doo parody that came out like 2 years ago. No matter what we may try, we can never fully escape the long shadow cast by this particular dumpster fire. The deeper that I've gotten into the Venture Brothers, the more clear it's become that while it is comedy focused at its core, it's not really a slice of life gag heavy show like say Family Guy. There are overarching plots and subplots. In a show like Family Guy, just about anything can happen in a given episode because it'll all be undone and reset by the time the next episode starts. Unless it's something particularly serious like a character being permanently killed off. But in the Venture Brothers, there's actual cause and effect for a lot of the things that happen over the course of an episode. I was actually surprised when there was an entire plot devoted to Rusty trying to get his shrink ray back from Billy Quizboy. I thought for sure that him selling it during the yard sale episode was just going to be an unremarkable gag, but no, they actually managed to catch me off guard with that one. Although, that emphasis on continuity does make me wonder what the Monarch is going to do going forward. I mean, surely he's not going to give up being Rusty's archenemy. I realize I'm praising something that for most other genres would be considered very basic, consistent storytelling, but consider the shows that are meant to be peers to the Venture Brothers. They either don't have any sort of serialization or they're moaning about having to have serialization. It's just something that's really nice to see, and by my estimation at least, it shows that the creators of the series are really invested in both the world and characters they've created.
Yes, you failed to reunite them, but look at it this way. You saved his boys, and that's what counts. Compromise, my friend, is the essence of diplomacy, and diplomacy is the cornerstone of love.
The show that it reminds me the most of is Archer. Yeah, they're both comedy focused and their settings are both incredibly silly in nature with a lot of gags packed into every episode, but at the same time there's a great deal of continuity across both series. And of course, both shows have a healthy amount of action mixed in with the jokes. I'm a simple man, I like gags and violence in equal measure.
Violence.
I do wonder if there's any staff in common between both shows. Near as I can tell, there aren't, but the vibes are certainly pretty similar. What's the best episode of Season 2? Well, that's actually a pretty tough question to answer because there's just so many really good episodes in this season. I guess if it has to come down to the top two, I'm torn between I Know Why the Caged Bird Kills because, again, Dr. Henry Killinger is an absolutely hilarious character, or the top spot would go to Viva Los Muertos because of the Scooby-Doo parody and the character stuff going on with Brock. Worst episode is similarly hard to decide because, again, there's just not many bad episodes out of the bunch. I guess the title would go to Hate Floats because it just really wasn't all that funny or memorable to me. Season 2 of The Venture Brothers is ultimately a very sharp jump in quality from what had been established in the first season, building up on those foundations and improving in just about every major respect. The writing is punchier, the animation is sharper, and the characters, by and large, are much more interesting this time around.
You cops.
Cops? Us?
Are you cops?
It's the case for most shows where the first season is largely a proof of concept, and if they get greenlit for a second season, the showrunners will have found their footing with what they want to do. And it certainly seems, to me at least, that the creators of this show have a very clear vision of what they want to do going forward. And personally, I really want to know what they're going to be cooking up next. Thanks for watching. Let's move on to Season 3.
Hang on, Hank! Cut him open! We're gonna put the boy in there!